Hey guys, so I just saw the Crow movie last night, and first thing, apologies if you can hear some noise in the background. My neighbors decided to start mowing and doing what sounds like construction work first thing on a Saturday morning, just as I started to film. So, yeah, it is what it is, I guess. But look, when it comes to The Crow, obviously, if you've been living under a rock, you might not be aware, but this movie has been subject to a lot of heated debate online, which, let's be honest, is pretty par for the course these days with almost every movie that comes out. So I feel like I try to remain center in these things because when it comes to remakes or reimaginings, look, I never feel like they shouldn't exist because so what? If they exist and you don't like it, don't watch it. It's not going to take away from the original. That's always going to be my opinion. But having said that, did I think this would ever be as good as the original? No. I feel like the original Crow movie was such a product of its time. It was a certain vibe, aesthetic, style that you just can't really replicate in the same way, especially in this day and age. So I was willing to give this movie a chance and go in with an open mind, seeing if it could put its own spin on the story and tell its own story and not try to be the original, which definitely seemed to be what they were going with. And to give it credit, it wasn't trying to be the original, though I do have one small complaint. Having said that, well, not too small actually, it was a major thing for me, but this movie wasn't gothic at all. Like, Bill Skarsgard's character had some black paint on his face. That was basically it. Like, the music, the soundtrack, it was just horrible and so tonally off. Everything about this movie, it felt like it was trying to step away from the original and the shadow of that. But it wasn't stepping into something good and creating anything good. Like, Bill Skarsgard's mullet and nipple tattoo, I mean, really, who decided that that was a good look? So basically, I was never expecting this to be as good as the original, but I was willing to go in and see if this could be an entertaining new interpretation, and it failed to do that. Look, I won't say I was ever bored during the movie, and there were a few good things I liked about it. I'll say that first. Some of the aesthetics were actually pretty cool. Some of the cinematography, the third act scene at the opera was good, but yeah, that was basically it. But having said that, the third act scene at the opera, the fight scene, felt so unnecessarily violent. Look, I watch action movies all the time. I have no problem with violence, but it is so over the top and it's trying so hard to do it just for shock value. It doesn't actually add anything to the story. And it just felt unnecessary. So Bill Skarsgård as Eric. Look, I am a big fan of Bill Skarsgård. He's a big part of the reason I was willing to give this a shot. So I feel like he excels at those creepy type of roles. Obviously, he's known for Pennywise, and I can't wait for him to return in Welcome to Derry, their prequel TV show. And he was also in another Stephen King universe show called Castle Rock, and he played a prisoner in Shawshank Prison, and he did a really good job. He's really good in these types of darker roles, so I feel like he could have been an amazing Eric, but I feel like it was the director. I feel like he must have been getting some pretty weird directions on how to act because he's so flat and lifeless this whole movie. It just feels like he has no emotion. Like, even when he's going to avenge his dead girlfriend who he's known for like a week, it sort of feels like, yeah, I'll go avenge her. I have nothing better to do. You don't feel the passion and this love, and they're meant to have this Romeo and Juliet epic type of love. So yeah, I don't think it's so much an issue of Bill being miscast in this like I previously thought when I walked out of the cinema. Now that I've thought about it, I think he just wasn't given anything to work with. So there was this one fight scene, which was unintentionally hilarious. Like, I actually laughed out loud. The guy that Eric is fighting rips his shirt off, like just in one clean motion, just rips it off. And it's so obviously to show off those awful, awful tattoos of his. So Twigs, Honestly, I haven't seen her in anything else except for this, so this is the only movie I can judge her acting abilities based off, but based off this, I don't think she's a strong actress. And I didn't buy the chemistry between her and Bill. It just didn't feel like they were that into each other, really. Like it was a fling, not an epic love story that you're willing to give your soul for. Like, I guess Romeo and Juliet, they probably only knew each other, what, a week or so? I don't know, I haven't read it in a long, long time, but like, it's not so much the amount of time as what we're shown goes on in that time. They do drugs, you know, they party, and it just feels like teenagers. It doesn't feel like they're in this serious, committed relationship where they're willing to die for each other. Honestly, they come across as angsty teenagers. The dialogue is really cringy, and the costumes, like everything that Bill wears, is just awful. And the whole revenge story, which features the ballet, just felt like it was trying to be John Wick. Like, obviously, the original Crow movie came out before John Wick, but just the whole vibe of it, the fight scenes, the ballet, it just felt too much like it was leaning on that for inspiration. And look, it felt like it lacked soul and emotional depth, which the original had in spades. And Eric, he was brutal, but at the same time, he was also a good person. And here, look, we don't know anything about this Eric, really. We know he had a bad childhood and he's an addict, but we never really feel like we know him. He just feels so different. And obviously, yes, that's a good thing in a way, that they're not trying to copy Brandon Lee, but at the same time, I just don't like what they did with him. And the whole storyline of making them addicts and the motivations of the villains just felt really weak. I feel like I've spent this whole review complaining, and that wasn't my intention. Like I said at the beginning, I was trying to think of some good things to say, but there just wasn't really that much that was good about this movie. So if you've seen it, let me know what you thought of it down below. Please consider giving me a like or subscribing. Anyway, so I would give this a 5 out of 10. Maybe that's being harsh, but yeah, I wasn't impressed. This is definitely not one I'll ever rewatch.